How's everybody doing? I hope you all had a good day. And for those of you in New York, despite the rain. All right, here's the video that I mentioned, which has to do with a question from the last Q&A video, where I was asked if there was any discussion of Joseph Corozzo Jr. being a member of the Gambino family. I'd like to expound on this recent debate, or better put, the labeling of a defense lawyer. What viewers need to understand is that when the government feels threatened or nervous about someone's skills as an attorney, they do what they know best, and that is trying to disqualify that person. Joseph's an easy target. His father and uncles were and are members of the Gambino family, as well as the family's administration. Federal prosecutors have made several attempts to remove him as defense counsel in organized crime cases. Their argument being that there's a potential conflict of interest. He could possibly become a witness, as well as his alleged proximity to a criminal enterprise. If the government succeeds in removing Joseph, an extremely skilled lawyer, it weakens any defendant's case that he's working on. The government's aggressive posture towards Joseph is first and foremost that he's arguably a very effective defense lawyer. A threat, as I mentioned, one who understands mob investigations. He, in most instances, knows the players personally, and more crucially, can challenge the government's narrative. Speaking of which, anyone, content creators included, who goes along with the government's theory is only pushing their narrative. In life, especially in legal situations, prosecutors and even sometimes defense lawyers will throw shit and enough of it where sometimes it sticks. But more often than not, it just plain stinks. The main objective for the government is to not lose cases. That's a given. But they also don't want to deal with any aggressive cross-examination of their witnesses, be it cooperating witnesses or not. In the past, in several federal cases, prosecutors have presented evidence depicting Joseph interacting with Gambino members, who they claim were discussing family business. On one such occasion, the government put into evidence Joseph gathering with Gambino members at Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, where they allege that extortion of the construction industry was discussed. And something the judge noted was unclear whether he actually participated in any criminal conversations, despite being present. Another argument the government put forth was information provided by a cooperating witness who claimed Joseph, in the late 80s, encouraged the shooting during a fight in Brooklyn. Recently, wiretapped conversations are being used by federal prosecutors in another effort to remove Joseph as counsel for Mark Liverano. Some of those conversations included claims that Joseph was a made member of the Gambino family, and that he was aware of Liverano's gambling and loan sharking crimes. In addition to a statement that Joseph was the Gambino's Tom Hagen, a reference to the movie The Godfather, and Tom Hagen, who was the family's consigliere, which is interesting in itself. By putting these specific wiretap conversations forth as evidence, is the government also trying to say that not only is Joseph a member, but the Gambino family's consigliere? It's totally ridiculous. I remember years ago when Joseph was just starting out. He was mentored by Ronnie Rubenstein, an excellent criminal defense lawyer. I personally know this because Ronnie was one of the lawyers on my 1989 case. And in 1993, Ronnie and Joseph opened up a law firm. In 1991, the government managed to disqualify 3 of the top mob lawyers at the time, Bruce Cutler, Jerry Shargell, and John Pollock. Federal prosecutors labeled them as house counsel for the Gambino family. Sound familiar? Whenever the government senses defeat, they tend to play dirty. They use terms like unsworn witness, which is basically a lawyer who personally knows facts related to the crime, one who might have to testify, but instead is acting as the defendant's attorney. Typically, mob lawyers represent members of the same family, and they get to know these guys, and at times attend meetings, social events, etc. In essence, they become trusted intermediaries between members. That closeness can give the appearance for prosecutors to argue that these lawyers know too much about the criminal enterprise. And in Joseph's case, it's much more compounded due to who his blood family is. Defense lawyers argue that removing counsel interferes with a defendant's Sixth Amendment right to choose their lawyer. while giving prosecutors an advantage if they can remove an experienced defense attorney, which leaves judges balancing competing principles: a defendant's right to counsel and the court's duty to ensure a fair trial without conflicts. However, if the government argues that a lawyer might become a witness or may have knowledge of the facts, the real question remains, is there concrete evidence to these claims? In many instances, there's not. So unless there's a serious proven conflict of interest, one that can't be waived or managed, then a judge should not disqualify a lawyer. Now here's the YouTube content creator angle. I've said it in the past. Many content creators are so thirsty for content that they even stoop to scanning the obituaries, hoping that a wise guy passed away. I recently created a blog on this very subject. Here you have federal prosecutors making claims that a distinguished lawyer is a member of the mob, directly putting his career in jeopardy, all for the sake of getting the upper hand, playing unfair. And then these prosecutors sit back and let social media act as their private town criers, standing on soapboxes, shouting government claims through the rafters. And the content creators do this sort of thing all for the sake of clicks, with zero regard for the accused. The government, specifically the FBI, have come to realize YouTube is a great weapon for them. I've personally flagged questions that were extremely suspect, questions that agents would love to know the answers to. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and give it a like, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, help me to continue making them, you can donate with the super thanks icon down below or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Let me quickly mention my blog, also called Sitdownnews, especially for those of you who still enjoy reading. The site can be found at sitdownnews.com and is a paid subscription. So here's what's factual. In 1991, Joseph Corozzo Jr. was admitted to the New York State Bar after attending Pace University as his undergraduate and then Brooklyn Law School. He's been practicing law for more than 3 decades. It's rare for a person from the inner circle of mafia leadership to become a practicing attorney. Traditionally, among mafia families, it's more common for males to follow the footsteps of fathers and uncles. It's also a fact that the mob avoids inducting lawyers due to the reality that lawyers are officers of the court and subject to ethical rules. If arrested, they face disbarment, and getting arrested is part of that life. In general, families prefer lawyers to remain trusted outsiders, or even on the outskirts as associates. Think about it. If Joseph is a lawyer as well as a Gambino member and gets locked up, what good is he when he can't even do what he does best: defend people? Even in Italy, you hear about lawyers charged with mafia association, but not as members of the mafia. So for the Gambino family, placing someone like Joseph Corozzo Jr. in their corner as legal counsel is a great weapon against the government. Why in the world would they jeopardize that? The bottom line is, they wouldn't.